Greetings and salutations. I've heard that you guys have more questions for me, so I'm gonna answer some. Let's go. Last time, majority of these were either about my trauma or my relationship, so let's see how we go today. If you were to have a different godly parent than Athena, who would it be? I'm a pretty good shot in archery, so maybe Apollo. I would like to be a Hephaestus kid because they're still building new technologies, which is what I would want to be doing. When did you have your bi-awakening? I'm not too sure that I had a specific bi-awakening. It was, for me, something that I realized over time. I think there might have been some moments when I was a kid watching Talia that could have been a bit of a bi-awakening for me. When Rachel tried to steal your man, what was your favorite song? Better Than Revenge by Taylor Swift, which is super dramatic, but I was a teenager, I was 14, forgive me. If you had grown up in Luke's household, do you think you would have done what he did? No, I don't think I would. What's one thing that you love about the other 6 demigods? I love Frank's kindness, I love Leo's intelligence, I love Piper's confidence and just her relentlessness and her passion and desire. Love Hazel's quiet strength. I love Jason's ability to calmly lead any group of people, and I love Percy's heart. What's your favorite memory of you and Percy? When we were like 13 or 14, we went to the fireworks on the 4th of July Camp Half-Blood together for the first time. I asked him during a capture the flag game. That was a really special moment. It was a happy moment too. A lot of my really big relationship moments with Percy have kind of happened amongst really intense and traumatic things, which is kind of normal for us. We're used to it, but it's nice to have a moment that felt like a shift in our relationship that was just safe and nice and happy. What's your current favorite Taylor Swift song? I do really love Renegade, but I think it's nice to have a friend. Do you and Magna see each other often? Not as often as I would like. Me being in college in New Rome just makes it a little bit more difficult to see each other on a regular basis, and obviously he's dead, so it can make it a little bit tougher to just plan a normal hangout. We make a plan of it to speak on the phone as often as we can, and we try to see each other at least once a month. If you were to date one of the 7 other than Percy, who would it be? God forbid anything ever happens between Percy and I, but I think Piper and I could be a badass couple, but I also really get along with Piper's girlfriend, so I don't want to be stepping on anything there because, you know, it's not fun when people try and step on your relationship. Which god had the strangest request when you remodeled Olympus, or any off-the-record run-ins with them in general? Aries had some requests that I would not like to repeat on camera just because they're not exactly safe for work. Aries is an interesting person. Let's put it that way. How do you and Percy deal with PTSD? Honestly, we don't really get the luxury of having coping mechanisms. Our lives are kind of so constantly in danger, and we're having to be in survival mode 100% of the time, even now when we're not exactly at camp anymore and things theoretically have calmed down. We still have almost daily run-ins with monsters, and that is because Percy is the son of Poseidon, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. But we kind of can't have any adventure that isn't at the risk of death, so we don't really get time to deal with it. We've just kind of still got to be in survival mode all the time. We just try to be there for each other when we can. At this point, we haven't really been given enough of a break to deal with it. Were you actually considering joining the Hunters? I was young and I was very overwhelmed with what was going on with my family. I felt like they didn't want me around anymore. They were moving to San Francisco. I didn't feel that I belonged with them, and I was becoming increasingly afraid of my own feelings for Percy, if I'm honest, and what was happening with Luke, and it felt like an easy answer and almost a cowardly one, which is why I didn't end up taking it. I think I would have really regretted it if I had joined, but I was definitely considering it in a very real sense for a minute there, almost out of my own cowardice, which I hate, but it's the truth. If you could choose one god to say one thing to without fear of repercussions, who would it be and what would you say? I would tell Hera to fuck off. What would you tell someone who thinks they're stupid or not smart enough? I would say that everyone has their own specific brand of intelligence, and there's no one way or right way to be smart. There's no one way to be intelligent. We all have different strengths and weaknesses, and it's about figuring out what those are for yourself and priding yourselves on those. For example, Percy and I have completely different ways of being smart, but I would without a doubt say that Percy is one of the smartest people I know, even though maybe he doesn't get the same grades that I do or anything like that. Percy is still one of the smartest people I know. He's just smart in a different sense to most of us Athena kids. And I think that applies to absolutely everyone. We just are all intelligent and we're all smart in our own ways, yeah. How did Sally and Paul react when you told them you and Percy were together? Sally already knew. She'd seen the shift in Percy the second he walked in the door after camp that year. She just knew because she'd been dealing with our angsty teenage bullshit for years. We officially told them at a dinner when I was over at their apartment, which was not necessary because Sally already knew and 100% had told Paul, but I was holding Percy's hand across the dinner table as we told them, and Paul smiled and gave us both hugs because he's the best, and Sally was obviously super supportive, and they're the best, yeah. Do you think you can ever go to your dad and stepmom's place and feel welcome and truly feel like you're at home? I know they're somewhat making an effort to be nice to you, but I feel like it would be hard to push down years of trauma and resentment towards your stepmom. You've kind of hit the nail on the head. You've described that pretty accurately. They are trying, and I really appreciate that. My dad in particular is trying really hard to have a relationship with me, and I am immensely grateful for that. But I'm old enough now to also know that the way that they treated me was just not okay, and I don't necessarily have to forgive them, even though I felt very pressured to when I was a bit younger. And I try to go home and I try to have that relationship with them, but it's not exactly somewhere I feel super safe in. The fact that I barely knew my stepbrothers when they were kids, they grew up without me around, that in and of itself makes me feel very out of place in that household, and like I'm visiting another family rather than that I'm a part of that family. And obviously there is all of the, as much as I don't want to resent my stepmom for what happened when I was younger, part of me I think forever will, and will forever feel unsafe around her, and that's hard to get past, but we're all working towards being a family. How were you able to be a cabin leader when you were 12? Seems really weird, but I don't know. Basically, I'd just been at camp so long that I was able to be a cabin leader. I knew the camp better than anyone else, and I knew what our cabins stood for more than anyone else because I'd been there so long by the age of 12 that I was just elected cabin leader, and I crushed it. I was the best leader that the Athena cabin has ever seen. Did you like Percy calling you wise girl? Look, it did get on my nerves when we were really young and it first started, because I was well aware that it was his unique way of calling me a smart ass initially. What was the most heartbreaking moment in your life? There's been a few. Waking up at camp and Percy being gone was one of them. My dad not believing me about all the monster attacks when I was younger, and the night that I ran away was another one. Realizing that Luke had tricked me into holding up the sky was a pretty monumental one, not gonna lie. What's one thing about yourself you wish you could change? Honestly, it is my jealousy. I've worked on it a lot over the years, but I'm well aware that Percy and I probably would have gotten together a lot younger and potentially been a lot happier when we were younger if I wasn't such a jealous person by nature, and if I didn't let that jealousy manifest in some admittedly toxic ways. What's your favorite thing to cook? I am not a good cook. Percy is the cook in our household because, I grew up at camp. Percy learned from Sally, whereas I lived at camp my whole life. I can make a good cup of coffee though. Cat or dog person? I'm a cat person. Percy's a dog person. Favorite Disney movie? Mine is Tangled. When going through Tartarus, what was the one thing you wished you could have brought? It's not something that I necessarily didn't bring, I guess, but I wish I could have kept it with me like the whole time, but it's my knife, it's my dagger. What Olivia Rodrigo song do you relate to most? And don't try and tell us there isn't. Well, you got me there. Right now it's probably Brutal. I think Sarah would have been an album that I could have really loved back in the day, back when I was 14, 15, and Percy was spending some more time with Rachel before she came Oracle. I think Trader and Good For You and even Favorite Crime could have been really applicable, but I think now it's definitely Brutal or Jealousy. Who's the best driver out of the 7 demigods? I would like to say me. I would like to think it's me, but I don't know that anyone else would agree. Frank is a very safe driver, which is nice. Percy's not the best. Piper is also like super chaotic on the road. Like, such loud music, doesn't really care about the speed limit. Like, yeah. Which of the beads on your camp necklace is your favorite and why? Honestly, look, the centaur in a dress is a pretty special bead to me, and it's a pretty happy memory of mine, not gonna lie. But the Empire State Building, I think it's the one that I'm the proudest to wear. Do you and Percy plan to have children? It's not exactly something that we talk about that much because there's no guarantee we'll live long enough to have children, but I think it's something we would both like to do if the gods allow it, I guess. Why do you prefer to fight with knives rather than archery and are excellent with both? Well, thank you for saying that. I am excellent at both. I just prefer close combat. Someone told me when I was really young that the bravest fighters use knives and fight in close range, and I guess I've carried that with me forever. What Taylor Swift song reminds you most of you and Percy? Mine, off of Speak Now. Do you think Percy was a cute guinea pig? Oh, for sure. He made the most adorable guinea pig. Do you cook or does Percy? Percy is definitely the one who cooks in our relationship, for sure. Why did you reject Luke's offer to join him and rebuild the world? Because I wasn't just turning down the offer to rebuild the world. Honestly, if the offer was no strings attached, just that, I think maybe I would have. But Luke and I had gone through so much together at that point, and Luke had already betrayed me and betrayed so many people I cared about at camp, and being so reckless with the people that he cared about, and was so clear about his alliances with Kronos that I just didn't agree with. And I could look at it logically and know that it wasn't going to end well, that it wasn't going to be me making the world a better place. It was going to be me redesigning a world built for destruction where a lot of people were going to get hurt, and a lot of people that I cared about were going to get hurt, and I was for sure going to get hurt because at that point in time I had finally realized that Luke wasn't the family that he promised me to be. Annabeth, what would you do with $1 million? Probably design like my dream building, maybe a new library or a museum. What is living with Percy like? It's nice in some regards and difficult in some other regards. Obviously, having him there is so comforting and wonderful, and getting to share all my days with him is a lovely thing. We became too used to not having each other there and missing each other for a long time that being able to share all of my life with him and have him there whenever I need him and be there for him whenever he needs me is such a gift. But also, so I'll be honest, I'm no saint. Like, I am quite a messy person. I have ADHD. When I'm really staying up late trying to work on a project or design a new building, I can create a mess, but it's a very organized mess. I know exactly where everything is. Percy doesn't understand that, and sometimes he'll try and be kind and clean up a little bit for me and just destroy my organized mess so I can find nothing anymore, which I understand is him trying to be a good boyfriend, but it can be difficult, and he himself can also be super messy, and I guess I'm more critical of another human's mess than my own, but I'm working on it, and we're learning with coexisting. But you know, it's great to have him there, and he is a great cook. He does all the cooking most of the time, which is very nice because I personally think I can live off of coffee and takeout, but he disagrees. So yeah, it's mostly a nice time. And we're breaking character because I don't know how to do outros and character, as always. Thank you so much to everyone who's sending questions. I love doing these. These are super fun. Thank you for being here, though. I love you all very much. I'll see you soon. Mwah.